Salam and welcome back to Somali Dispatch and to our new segment called Dispatches, where we'll be discussing some of the biggest Somali-related news items of the week. My name is Abdikadir Guled. This week's biggest news items include Las Anod Deportations, the recent Somaliland Upper House elections in Mogadishu, and the Ahlu Sunna wal Jemma Resurgence in Gueleh. To discuss these issues this week, we invited Fatheya Guelleh and Mohamed Dable, both prolific Somali researchers and on Horn of Africa analysts. They joined us from the UK where they reside. Welcome to Somali Dispatch and to our initial Dispatches program. And Fatheya Duale and Mohamed Dable or Mohamed Noor, welcome to the both of you to the program.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Let me start by this week's biggest news item, for lack of a better term, with hundreds of Las Anod residents of Somalia descendants being evicted from that city back to Somalia, as it were, or the south. Give us your top line reaction, Fatheya. Let me start with you and get your initial reaction to that item.
Thank you, Abdikadir. It's quite disturbing, really. So what happened in Las Anod was really unprecedented for Somali people to be evicted from a land that they were born, that they have businesses cultivated, that they have properties, that they have lived, for many years. So the step that the government of Somaliland has taken to actually place people into buses like cattle and evict them from everything that they have known is really it detracts from the very ethos that they built the Somaliland dream, which is fair elections, justice, principles and values that we that has made Somaliland cause for recognition famous. So this step by the government of colonial-led government by Musabihi is contravening human rights, and it's not the way forward. It does not make their case for the international community palatable. It completely destroys confidence in this current government, which is up for a re-election. I mean, there are elections coming up in 2022. And I'm really waiting to see what the opposition parties are going to be doing about this. It is very traumatic for women and children to be carted off into trucks and, to lose their home. That is not the Somaliland dream. That is not why we are here. And I am absolutely aghast and shocked at this level of impunity.
Absolutely. I appreciate that reaction and that feedback. And Mohamed Noor, if you can also give us your top line reaction to that piece of sad information and news.
Well, this is totally dismaying and shocking. It comes at a time when we have moved on a lot in terms of reconciliation and in terms of coming together as a Somali nation or as a country, even though still differences exist. This is going to cause a lot of damage to, relationship between the Somali, tribes, actually, because we're clan-based society, and every clan lives everywhere, and this is going to may have a negative impact on people who hail from Somaliland and who are the dominant tribe there. It's cultivating a climate of mistrust, a climate of hatred, and even stoking tension between brotherly people, particularly people who are not politically involved, people who are just going about their own lives. They're there for just leading their normal life. Maybe some of them have made settlement there and, are doing well in terms of business, in terms of even the peace and security, they went there to enjoy. A lot of people who have made their home Somaliland just because of its stability, and that is going to show that a new phase of what people expect from Somaliland is in the beginning at the moment.
Right. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the years of stability, the years of democratic progress that Somaliland has been building, that is going to be now seen in a different phase now, whether it is within Somalia or whether it is beyond Somalia.
Right. If I may quickly go back to Fatheya. Fatheya, this is not actually the first time this happened. In 2003, the Guelleh presidency also evicted Ethiopian and non-Somalilanders alike from Somaliland at the time. And in 2010, President Faroole of Puntland did similar things where he evicted a lot of Southerners, from that region. But having said all of that, was there it's a ghastly move, but was there, even with that, decision to evict people, a lot is being missed. What could they have done to mitigate some of the horror stories that we're hearing in people being uprooted, for example? Was there opportunities missed to address how to do this if they were hell-bent on doing it anyways?
Thank you for that. I mean, I can understand that you are citing previous administrations' actions to justify what just happened. But in terms of the legality of it, and for what Somaliland actually stands for, which is equal opportunities, which is not suppressing the truth, which is not infringing on the rights of journalists and academics or even opposition parties, there has been grievous human rights violations that has been occurring, and the international community are well aware of these human rights violations because they have been much debated. And in terms of the people of Las Anod, recently, a few weeks ago, they had a governor that was assassinated, and we do not have the information to what happened to Abdirassaq Ilmi and why he was killed and where the investigation is. So there is this idea that Somaliland is at peace and that things are fine by some people who are trying to promote that idea. But the reality on the ground is there is a internal security and internal strife. But what's happened to Las Anod is that they have been left to fend for themselves. And I don't know why this government is so keen on divisive politics, because that's not going to get us anywhere. And I don't understand why the opposition, which are the majority now in the recent parliamentary election is indicative about the change of that has happened within the society themselves. So this idea that you can take people from Las Anod and just evict them is really unjustifiable, whichever way you see it, because these people are going to contribute to the economy of Somaliland. These people are the people that we need to invest in. We need to not just invest in Hargeisa or Guelleh. We need to invest in Bur'a. We need to invest in Las Anod. We need to invest across the board, because we don't want people to be evicted. We need more people, actually, because the Horn of Africa is integrating. This is what a lot of people don't understand about economics. It's not, the Somali population is a mere 15 million people. If you compare it to other countries like Ethiopia or Kenya, they are the economies that are operating at a higher level within the Horn of Africa. Somalia, or be it Somaliland or Somalia, it's the gateway to Africa. They have so many resources, untapped wealth. They don't need to evict people. They need to actually make sure that the infrastructure is there. And I can understand about the budgets. I can understand that lack of funding or access to international finance market has impacted Somaliland. But let's be honest, Somaliland needs to sit at the table with Somalia and negotiate or formulate a fiscal and a monetary policy that's feasible, that's working, because we live in this, these people, they need a future.
Right.
And the future is about progress.
Right.
It's not about regressing back to
Right.
the old bad days.
Right. Mohamed Dable, having said all of that, and Fatheya was eloquent in highlighting some of the issues at hand and how they should be addressed, and not scapegoat people and just be strong-armed about it. Going back to the point where you made about the impact this would have on Somalilanders or people who hail from that part of the country who live in other parts of Somalia. Would it be fair to say two wrongs don't make a right? If the argument is no Somali should feel this or should have them happen this to, is it worthwhile in highlighting and saying, let's not make the same mistake the so-called Somaliland politicians have made and take it out on civilians who live amongst you? Is there an argument that could be made about that, or is that something we should be highlighting that in here?
Absolutely right. Yeah, it is an argument to highlight. And, two wrongs never make any right. And whatever the authorities in Somaliland have, whatever actions they have done, for whatever reasons, which I can absolutely understand because of the current electoral climate we're in, and also because of the frustration of the Somaliland administration with Mogadishu when it comes to the peace talks. I absolutely call for calm, and I also call for both the administration in Mogadishu and also the larger Somali people not to take similar actions or counteract with what the people of Somaliland have done. We are still going to depend on each other, and we are still brothers, and we should not actually do exactly what they have done. That's exactly what authorities in Somaliland are trying to are looking for. They are trying to kind of like made some silly reactions taken by Mogadishu or even people in southern Somalia, so that they can justify and even take further actions to make sure that they make case for their cessation. It should be done through dialogue, through peace talks, and I call for reconciliation and the talks to continue after the elections, whichever administration that comes to power. That is a priority, I think, alongside running the overall affairs of the state.
Right. And staying with you and perhaps some of the things that are the ghastly things that is currently happening in Las Anod does have an aspect of political ramification of what's going on in the country at large. I would like to get your attention on our reaction on the upper house elections for Northerners or Somalilanders in Mogadishu. What was your reaction and what jumped at you as you watched that?
Well, the most interesting thing that I have observed in this election, and also that has introduced something new to the culture of the Somali election, is something new. That was people who were voting were masking, were putting on face masks. I think for two reasons. One is maybe some people who are afraid of repercussions if they go back to Somaliland, wanted to hide their face behind a mask. The other thing is the threat from Al-Shabaab that has actually sent a message to the entire country that they will be disrupting the elections, and they actually warn those candidates, those voters, and all those people who participate in the election. They will pay the consequences if they participate in the election. So for those two reasons, I will say something new has actually emerged, and this shows how an election, a fair and free election, is unlikely to happen in Somalia. And also the other thing is because the election in Somaliland senators who who are elected now. One of them is Dr. Abdi Ismail Samatar. I see him someone who is a newcomer into the politics after the civil war, and I think he's going to contribute a lot, and he's going to have a lot of he can be making a lot of change to the current.
Right, and a lot, including journalists like myself, is looking to Professor Samatar to see an analyst or a critic of the successive governments of Somalia, to see what he can actually contribute and perhaps open himself possibly to criticism himself in how he moves forward. That will be interesting on a future topic for sure. To go to Fathiya and to get her reaction on the upper house elections, and what impacts that would have on the current issues and the issues that you highlighted, be they economic integration, succession or no succession, Somaliland talks. How could they be different from their predecessors?
Honestly, as they say in English, the proof is in the pudding. So these newly elected upper house individuals, be it Hashi or the former speaker for Somalia, Dable, or Samatar, or the man that hailed from I think that hailed from Arigabo. These are individuals that have been supported, they have been funded, they have been pushed into this position, because there is a factionalism or some sort of internal strife that's happening already in Mogadishu, with different people afraid about the security situation that's deteriorating, that has been obviously impacted by the political impasse within the Somalia election. So this Somaliland representatives that have been, elected, and the way they've been elected, incognito by many people who do not want to be recognized, as if that actually is feasible in itself. I mean, humor aside, it shows you the level of fear that's pervasive within Somali politics at the moment, the uncertainty, the level of disconnection that we have as people between who is supposed to represent us as in terms of leadership and what is happening at the bottom. And politics at the moment is about funding. It's about looking at what's happening externally outside of Somalia, and also looking at what is it that these men who hail from Somaliland can alter the current political situation in Somalia, in Mogadishu, given the relationship between Somaliland and Somalia. Right. That there has not been any meetings, any resolution to an ongoing situation that has, that's almost Shakespearean in terms of looking at the drama of it. And in terms of economics, there are lots of businessmen who have interest in Mogadishu. They want policy. They don't want to be entangled in political wrangling. And this is the bottom line of any situation. Right. You have to see what's good for the economy and what's good for the people, rather than prolonging this kind of almost political
saga.
There are people who think that politics is about power. Yes, but politics is supposed to facilitate the economic, the trade. Is supposed to make people's lives easier. It's supposed to regulate the economy. Right. And this is not happening. So I'm wishing them good luck, right. And we will see.
Right, and with politics being the possible, right? What is possible from their perspective, right? But if I may add and get your reaction on Somaliland government's reaction to the involvement of the UN representative in Mogadishu to Somalia, James Swan, and the calls to ban him, and he's apparently accused of by the Somaliland government, specifically the VP, that he actually was given notoriety to that election and was actually affirming by attending the elections that these are the actual representatives of Somaliland. Your reaction to that?
James Swan is really someone who has been involved in Somalia for quite some time. James Swan is trying to facilitate peaceful measures for all parties. But what Somaliland wants is for some form of, recognition for its ability to maintain its independence for so long. But that can't happen when things are not settled in Mogadishu. So it's almost an existential problem. So there is this fear that, an undercurrent of uncertainty. And this needs to be squashed by the international community. And Mr. Swan is the representative. And his job is to make sure that Somalia does not regress into the bad days of, violence and anarchy. And that's not going to happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying the situation is volatile right now. Right. And what people need to understand is that Somaliland has its own election coming up, and that's next year for presidential. And James Swan is also the representative that needs to resolve what's been happening between the executive powers in Somalia. And there is an issue, a real dangerous issue, that Somalia lacks constitutional court, the federal government, that they have been prolonging this election, and it has not benefited anyone.
Right.
So,
Mohamed Dable, feel free to weigh in on that Swan versus Vice President Salih issue. But the question for you is, if you can give us your top line takeaway with the resurgence of Ahlu Sunna wal Jama'ah in Galmudug, and what that new development is going to have, how it's going to affect the federal elections, the lower house elections, the conclusion of the upper house elections in Galmudug, and the overall stability of the country.
And we are just seeing a repeat of where things were before, when the state of Galmudug was formed. We knew that there was territorial dispute between Galmudug and Puntland, and also there was the exclusion of Ahlu Sunna wal Jama'ah from the equation when initially Galmudug was formed. And then there were talks that were going on, the constitutional dispute, which actually identified the borderline between the two states, were resolved. And also Ahlu Sunna wal Jama'ah, there was talk to bring them into the administration in Galmudug. That never fully happened. Then when the Farmajo administration came into power, there was still that Ahlu Sunna was a power in the political dynamic of Galmudug. They were armed, and they actually had a case to be included in the politics. However, there was one thing that always limited their ambition. That was the 4.5 clan rule. So were they going to be extra? I mean, will they be given extra positions? No, they hail from the clans that form Galmudug. So even now, the only solution will be for them to have a talk and discussion with their clans and see what what compromise that can be struck out. They need to be included in the politics. Yes, they need to be part of the political dynamic. However, the clan 4.5 is limiting them because they're already. So the thing is they cannot be easily accommodated at the moment without first of all agreeing on how or what mechanism are there for them to be part of the coming or incoming political representation. So right. There are talks that need, but this can actually lead to further conflicts and could even delay the election, particularly in Guled. if things are not resolved by dialogue, and you know, a solution is not found in a way to represent them, in make them represented in these elections, then there will be a delay to the election to take place in Gueleh in particular, and it will even delay the overall electoral, you know, electoral timetable.
Right, Fathiya, your reaction to the resurgence of Ahlu Sunna and perhaps the underlining opposition to the federal government and the closeness of President Qorqor's is to President Farmajo. Perhaps some analysts are insinuating that fermented this uprising. From your point of view, how do you see what's going on in Gueleh these days?
Well, there has been a silence, hasn't there? Because there has been a silence by Prime Minister Roble about this. He hasn't really elaborated on the current situation in Gueleh. And to be honest, he's the person that's supposed to be facilitating the election. I know that the representative of Gueleh is has been appointed, more or less, you know, supported directly by Farmajo last year. And Ahlu Sunna wa Jama'ah, they have always existed as a group. They were opposing. They're much more moderate in their beliefs, you know, towards the Sufi ideology, rather than, you know, what we have currently at the moment, which is ISIS and Al-Shabaab in Somalia. So who are Salafists? Let's not mince our words here. And they are the biggest threat to Somalia's security and progress. And this is unacceptable that as Sunnah wa Jama'ah now are more or less undermining President Qorqor of Gueleh after they have demobilized, you know, in last year in 2020. So this issue of why Ahlu Sunnah wa Jama'ah, they must be funded somehow. So we need to establish who is funding them, and we need to establish why this resurgence right now. Their representative, I think, Sheikh Shakir, he came from Nairobi. Now, what business does he have in Nairobi? What's happening in Nairobi? This is what we should be asking, because Somalia is going through ICJ case, maritime case. That's the decision is going to be, be given about this on the 12th of October. There's the issue with Farmajo and Prime Minister Roble, where there is fractious relationship now because of Ikram Tahleel's case and Fahad Yassin and all these kind of, you know, serious issues that has not been dealt with in terms of security. So to destabilize Nusa Mareb, which hosted the federal member states and the candidates numerously, there was Nusa Mareb 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we are counting. How many times have they met in Afisioni in Mogadishu to resolve this election delay? Now, Ahlu Sunnah wa Jama'ah is literally another issue that has not, that cannot be even explained logically or rationally, because it's like adding fuel to the fire. And there is no need to do this, because Somalia is trying to transform, to improve its situation, to deal with, you know, the deficit in terms of the trade, the expenses. So this issue of political tension is not really the right time. And if Ahlu Sunnah wa Jama'ah want to be part of the 4.5, well, that should have actually been agreed upon in September. We know the September the 17th agreement that should have been looked into. But to come later, you know, as matters stand, you know, it's only a few weeks we were supposed to have a new president. It's like putting a spanner in the wheel, so to speak. Right. So this idea that Ahlu Sunnah wa Jama'ah are asserting themselves is questionable. Who's funding them? Where were they? You know, why weren't they part of and should we maybe allow Al-Shabaab to have a seat at the table? Should we debate about that? Because as things stand, we really need to look at the bigger picture. We need to see where will Somalia be in the next 10 years, rather than what's happening right now.
Right. As the saying goes, Somali politics issues are resolved; they never are solved. So, and it speaks to that, I think, in this and many other situations. But I can't thank you enough for yourself, Fathiya, Gueleh, and Mohamed Dable for joining and explaining these issues and giving your perspectives. I immensely thank you and appreciate you joining us tonight. Hey, thank you for visiting our YouTube channel. You should know that you can get updated Somali-related news and information in English on our website, somalidispatch.com. And also follow and subscribe to our social media channels and pages at Somali Dispatch so you can stay connected 24/7. Thank you.